Today I have a guest on my show, Iman Cush. He and I are discussing the Qur'an and their relationship to women. And what a befitting title for Mother's Day. All right, Brother Cush, you were speaking when we were interrupted.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
There are two creation stories in the book of Genesis. Both male and female is created at the same time, Genesis 1:27, and then the second creation story, 2:7. Explain the two verses to me, please, and how do they relate to the two Eves in the garden that was written in the Tanakh, a person or a creature by the name of Lola. Who was she? And what was her purpose and how they relate?
Well, in the Holy Scriptures, we don't have no two Eves. There's only one Eve, and there was only one garden. And according to the book of Genesis, the second chapter, all the second chapter is a decoration or showing the generations of the first chapter. Notice what it says in Genesis 2:1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. So there's nothing being created here. That's totally finished. And on the seventh day Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he made, and he blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which he had created. And notice the fourth verse. These are the generations of the heaven and the earth when they were created, past tense, in the day that Yah made the earth and heaven. And what he's doing is showing you the various cycles, the various events, the chronology of these events. It's not that these are two different gardens or two different Eves or two separate times. Many of our brothers that like understanding in the word of the Creator, they think there's a total different creation in the second chapter, but this is merely a generation showing the various generations of these things when they were created and made. And it lets you know that every plant in the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for Yah had not caused it to rain upon the earth, for there was not a man to till the ground. So all he's saying here is this is the generations. Okay? But right now, yes, I did. You asked me why was there two different gardens of Eve. You asked me why was there two Edens, and I'm showing you there or not, sir.
Can I speak?
Well, it's my turn to ask you the question. That's how it's arranged right now. Right now, I didn't have to take the full 3 minutes to answer that question. It's very self-explanatory with anyone that reads with understanding. But since it's my turn to ask you a question, I want to ask you that according to the Qur'an and the Hadith, the righteous men will have 72 virgins, you told me. So my question is, who will the righteous women be with? Because all these virgins are supposed to be virgins. So if all the righteous men got, they're in heaven in this great paradise, and all of them got these big-eyed women that are virgin, that have never touched men, never known a man, who will the women be with?
First of all, to mention that this is just merely that you read a hadith is not equivalent. You see, in Islam, there are grades of hadith, and just to mention a hadith, like you rattle on about the Torah with no proof, each hadith has a chain of narrators. So you have weak hadiths, you have unauthentic hadiths, and you have some hadiths that are sound. If you were to rank the Bible according to how we measure our hadith, the whole Bible will be considered a weak hadith. First of all, let's get that clear. Second of all, the woman can enter paradise by any gate she chooses, simply by being obedient to her husband and being a good wife. She gets the rewards of paradise and all that is within. And Prophet Muhammad all the time is explaining the rewards of paradise, which would be too numerous me to name at this time. So I believe I answered your question.
No, you didn't tell me how many husbands the righteous woman to have.
How many husbands?
Yeah, would she? Her husband would have 72 wives that are virgins. Who would she be married to?
The woman in Islam, when she goes to paradise, she gets the rewards of paradise. The rewards of paradise is you couldn't even imagine in this state of mind.
So I know I imagine she don't have no husband to be with no more.
She has much more than that.
Okay, good enough.
She has much more than that.
Right.
But you never answered the question about Lola.
Well, there's no
according to
Lola.
Enoch.
There's no Lola in the Torah here.
In the Tanakh, Lola is written in the
Yes.
book of Enoch. Can you
Well,
explain?
Enoch
Lola
is
to me?
not one of the books of the Torah, sir.
Why not?
Well,
It
it
was,
just
it
isn't,
previously was.
sir. It is not one of the books of the
Okay,
Torah.
They just threw away a book.
No, it didn't throw away a book. It's not one of the books of the Torah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, but
Thank you.
yes, but I would like to ask you another question since it's.
Wait a minute, did I ask?
Did it?
No, it's my turn to ask.
Yes, you did. You asked me where was Lola and who was she.
And you asked me.
Yeah, and that's now it's my turn to get a chance to ask you since you finished your presentation.
You asked
Asked
me what was the reward of it?
yes, and you answered that and said just the rewards
But
of
now
being
it's
in
my turn to answer
paradise.
a question.
You did. You asked me who was Lola.
No, that was the first question that you never answered.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Remember?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. What did the Torah say about ending female slavery
What did the Torah say about ending female slavery?
and slavery in general?
And slavery in general, well, it says in the Torah that when Israel goes home back to their own land where we have been taken from, and once we return on the last day, we will again have slaves. The Creator says, as the heathens has done unto us, so will we do unto them. So it will not end until we have an opportunity to do unto others as they have done unto us, according to the Scriptures. I'll quote a couple of verses to show you how the Creator works. In the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, I'll go there, and I'll answer the question from the Scriptures. The 14th chapter of Isaiah, it starts at the first verse, and it reads as follows. For Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the house of Jacob shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them, and the land of Yah for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. So slavery did not end in the Torah. Slavery will end once Israel go back home, and as we were treated, so will we treat others. All right, now I have a question for you. In your Qur'an, you stated that the parents were so well loved and adorned. Would you turn your book with me to Surah 9, verse 113, verse 113. It says, it is not right for the prophet nor the believers to ask forgiveness for idol worshippers, even if they were his relatives, once they find out that they deserved hell. So in other words, what this is saying, as it said in other places, the unbeliever can't be saved. Well, we know that's ridiculous because most Muslims used to be Christians. Most Muslims, if they were not Christians, they were pagans, or they were non-believers at all. And according to the Quran, an unbeliever cannot be saved. Well, right now, your existence is a total contradiction to what the Quran says, because many of the people that are in the Islamic faith were pagans or members of other denominations at one time or another. But the question I'm asking you, Brother Cush, right? Yes, the question, I did ask you the question. The question was, you stated that it's not mentioned that you are not to pray for your parents if they are unbelievers, because they cannot be saved. Notice what Surah 9, 113 says. And how would you answer that, sir?
Yes, sir. This happened during the prophet's time when his uncle was on his deathbed dying. A person can always make dua or make a prayer to his parents. This case, Allah says, and those who believe to ask forgiveness for the mushrikun, the polytheists, the idolaters, and the pagans, disbelievers in the oneness of Allah, even though they be of kin, after it had become clear to them that they are the dwellers of the fire. The key here is that after it has become clear to them that they are dwellers of the fire. So the Prophet Muhammad was always telling his uncle to die, embrace Islam, say Allah, Ahad, Allah is one. But he would never say it. And he was about to say it. And one pagan said, "You're going to give up the religion of your forefathers?" And this person had died a disbeliever. So that's the key. It is what you failed to read. When it has become clear to them that they are the dwellers of the fire, because they died in a state of disbelief. Allah says in the Qur'an, do not die except for in a state of submission to Allah.
But it said a believer can't be saved. Unbeliever cannot be saved. It said don't pray for them when they're alive.
No.
We're not talking about when they're dead.
It's,
and I guess we have to make ourselves a judge, don't we? We have to start judging
when when it becomes clear to them that they are the dwellers of the fire, because they died in a state of disbelief. So this is clear. A person can make a repent on the deathbed, and this is what's happening. And this is what happened if you knew the story, and that is what brings it all in context.
I had no
this
story,
person,
and I know it had the Quran.
This person never did embrace Islam, but you can always pray. I pray that you become Muslim. I think you're on your way. I think you're on your way. But Allah guides, and Allah makes Muslims. Now, if I may, I would like to ask you a
Yes, you may.
question.
Yes, sir.
We know that women, according to the Torah, I believe Deborah was a leader. What was the status of women in the Torah, and could they become priests?
Yes, to answer that. Were you finished? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm finished. Could they become priests? And dealing with women, this is dealing with the status of women. The firstborn rights apply to all of the firstborn children. Did the firstborn rights apply to women and laws of inheritance according to women, for women?
All right, sir. Now, to answer your question,
could a woman be a priest?
First of all, could a woman be a priest? A woman could not be a priest because a priest was a person that officiated religious ceremonies inside the temple. And there were times during the course of a month that a woman was unclean. So at that particular time, she could not be a person that officiated the duties of a priest that had to remain in the temple because she was unclean 7 days out of every month. So she could not be a priest, but she could be greater than a priest. She could be a prophetess, and we had many prophetesses, and they were rulers over our men. And not only that, we had women that acted in the position of a judge, and judges is what ruled Israel before we had kings. And one of the great judges was Deborah, and she were over the men. She was over all the priests, all the prophets. They came to her because she was the judge. Not so in Islam. A woman has no position of leadership that she could be in Islam, as far as a priest or as far as a Iman or as far as a prophet. Women were like Surah 4:34 said. They were people that had to be kept up by the men. They couldn't take care of themselves, and the man had to look out because he was a stronger one, according to the Quran. Not so with the Torah. Not so at all. So I hope I answered your question, but let me ask you one. According to the Quran, why aren't men and women allowed to ask questions? And according to the Qur'an, they are not. According to Surah 5, 101 to 102, they were not allowed to ask questions. Why is this that you have people seeking to learn about their deity and the religion, and they're not even allowed to ask the question? Yes, sir.
You said Surah 5,
Yes.
101 and 102?
Yes. You want to read it?
Sure. O ye who believe, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. O ye who believe, ask not about things which, if made plain to you, may cause you trouble. But if you ask about them while the Qur'an is being revealed, they will be made plain to you. Allah has forgiven that, and Allah is all forgiven, most merciful. Before you, a community asked such questions that on their account they became disbelievers. You see, you have to be careful when you ask questions. And this, Islam, first of all, let me clarify, encourages you to ask questions. You have the right to ask questions. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad spent majority of his life answering questions. You see, what you are doing, again, you're taking it out of the context. O you believe, ask not about things which, if made plain to you, may cause you trouble.
So who's
let me finish.
All right, excuse me.
So Prophet Muhammad was receiving a revelation. So in the revelation, before he can explain it, you can't just ask questions. There's a time and a place for questioning. Unlike children of Israel, who was told to sacrifice a cow, they asked, what color cow? Allah gave him an answer. And then after they got the answer, they asked another question. He said it has to be a cow of this stature or this stature. And then they're questioning, and every time they asked a question, it became more difficult because they did not want to sacrifice the cow because they fell into error and started worshiping the cow. And so too many questions, like we're told to look at children of Israel who went astray because of their cowardness and asking too many questions. But in Islam, you are encouraged strongly to ask many questions.
Not according to the book, and then you might add, who can decide what makes good sense to me and what is made plain to me? So that's telling me that just like in some cults, you're not allowed.
Is that a question?
No, go ahead. I'm waiting for your question. I thought you were waiting for a comment from me. Go ahead.
I thought that was a question.
No, sir.
Like I said, it's the context.
But
you're taking it out of context.
I do have a question, though, that I do want to ask. If you wish, or you can ask me a question, or I can ask you, whatever you prefer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like for you act as if the land is just going to be given to the Bani Israel, the children of Israel. But when fighting was prescribed for you and the children of Israel, they were cowards and they did not go into the land. They got so arrogant that they said, "Oh Allah, you go into the land. You clear out the giants." When fighting was prescribed for you, you did not do it. My question is, what makes you think, or will we have to go to the land, as you call it, and fight, or will Allah just hand it to us, unlike the scriptures, your scriptures even say also?
Well, according to the Holy Scriptures of Yah, He told us in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, where I took you, and as well as the book of Isaiah, the 49th chapter, how we're going to go into the land, and that is by His Spirit. We will not go by strength nor by might, but by the Spirit of Yah that go before us. Some people were dictated to do all the fighting because they did not have the Creator with them. We did, and we fought when the Creator told us to fight, and we stood still when He told us to stand still. The instance when we went over into the land of Canaan, our people, some of them were very resistant. They were very frightened, and this was a sin to our people as it is today. So I'll try to not make any excuses for anything. We we did show acts of cowardness when the Creator told us to take the land of Canaan. But everything that you read in the Qur'an is not the word of the Almighty. And this is the thing that you must realize. All through the Qur'an, it tells you that the Qur'an verifies all of the other previous scriptures. And if it verifies all of the previous scriptures, the Torah was already made at that time. There was already a Torah. And nowhere did the Qur'an say, don't go by the old Torah, go by the new one, or don't accept this Torah, accept that one. They made no distinction between the Torahs at all. So today, many of my Muslim brothers that don't want to deal with the fact that their laws are totally contrary to the laws of the Creator, they say, well, it must have been another book that you wrote. Well, if there's another book, when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, why were the things that are written in the Dead Sea Scrolls verifying everything that's in the Torah today? All the books of the Old Testament are in the Dead Sea Scrolls, with the exception of the book of Esther. And the prophet Muhammad told the people, he went by the Torah. And no time did he say the Torah was the wrong book to go by at all.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
All right, but I tried to answer your question, but I'd like to ask you a question at this time, if it's my turn to ask you a question.